You're very welcome to join us here again in St. Eugene's Cathedral Hall in Derry for the next of our series of conversations on Catholic education in this Catholic Schools Week 2023, where the theme is inviting us to walk together, that whole theme of synodality, as we face the challenges that society presents to all our young people today, and specifically the challenges that Catholic education faces in discerning its way forward, its contribution to society. And I'm delighted to have with me today Marguerite Hamilton, renowned educationalist, I'll have to say, former principal of Thornhill, who's now still heavily involved in all sorts of wonderful initiatives. And you have a real passion for not just defending Catholic education, but actually saying if we're going to face into changing times, there's an enormous need for ongoing formation for teachers. Yes, in general, teaching skills, but specifically in being able to understand what relevance, what role, what contribution there is for Catholic education in 2023 and onwards. Well, where does that passion come from?
Thank you very much for that lovely introduction, Bishop. And yes, I am very committed to that. And I really believe, as we are encouraged to dialogue with culture, the latest document that has come out from the Vatican and Catholic education, that we are being invited to say, this is who we are and that's what we stand for. Now that can sound sometimes a very exclusive thing, but that's not what it's meant to be. But it helps us to form, and it helps us to have a language of how we dialogue with others in society. And as you know, there's such a big push for a one system of education here in the North. Integrated education is being presented above all other kinds of education. And in the Catholic sector, we have so much to offer. We have in the past, and we have now, and we have going into the future. But we need to know who we are, so that we can give that benefit and that richness to our young people.
Yes, and it's strange that there are two tendencies. One is saying that in the direction of we must celebrate diversity and respect it, and on the other hand, for God's sake, don't have any diversity in education. There's really only one form of education that's morally acceptable or seen as being morally superior to others. So what are the challenges for Catholic educationalists in terms of learning who they are and what we have to contribute and how we can engage with our culture? What are the main obstacles? What are the main learnings that we have to get involved in?
I think, as particularly in school leadership, we have to put down markers, and we have to say that the formation of Catholic teachers in our Catholic schools, the ongoing formation, is important. In our school development plans, the Catholic ethos is always mentioned there, and we always have markers that we put down and we say this is how we are developing. We attend very well to the ongoing intellectual development of our teachers, and certainly that social psychological development. And quite rightly, we have such emphasis these days on positive mental health for our young people because of the challenges they are facing. But I would like to see us putting more emphasis on the spiritual development of our teachers.
And the spiritual development of teachers as a contribution to enabling them to help young people cope with the horrendous challenges that they face, the horrendous circumstances that many of them have to cope with out there, the violence, the pornography, the expectations, the lack of guidance and so on. So I think it's rediscovering the value of a Christian ethos, a Catholic ethos.
Yeah, and I think too that when we make that and we say this is our grand narrative, this is our big story in Catholic education, this is why we're doing what we are doing, we can pass those values and principles on to our young people. And whenever we're enthusiastic about our faith and about spiritual development, then our young people, they're very good at picking up all those clues. And even when they challenge you, as they do, about faith and sometimes saying, well, I really don't believe or whatever, in our treatment of them, which comes from, for me, which came from what I believe as a Catholic and how we treat people, adults and children, they pick that up So every teacher in every Catholic school can pass that on to the young people there, can show them this is how we act, this is how we respect one another, this is how we forgive one another, this is how we love one another, this is how we give support. And when we see that in the school context, we're encouraging them then to live that when they leave the school.
And I suppose Catherine Macaulay, who founded the Sisters of Mercy, put herself out, spent her life, because she was committed to providing education, particularly for girls at her time in Dublin and then around the rest of Ireland. But she had obviously a passion for the welfare of those who needed to hear good news, who needed to believe they could achieve, who wanted to have aspirations for the future. Is it a distinct mercy ethos that you would have come up through?
Well, I suppose I came up through that ethos myself and had great encouragement from the sisters there. They always taught that you have a particular vocation. God is calling you to do something. Every single person has a calling. And when you answer that call, you are making a wonderful contribution. Sometimes you don't always see it and you don't always understand it, but you are contributing to the bigger picture of making society better. And the sisters always would have taught that, that you can make a positive contribution. And I suppose those who came after them, certainly I would have tried that in Thornhill, that instilling in the girls, yes, you're here to be educated. Yes, you're here to make the best of your gifts and talents, but not only for yourself, for other people. And the various outreach programs that I think our Catholic schools are particularly good at. When you frame that as part of the Christian story, we are doing this because Jesus taught we look after the needy, we look after those who are less fortunate than ourselves. When you frame that for young people, I think that's what we need to be doing, articulating that. It's not just a good idea, it's not just a good thing. We are doing this because we are passionate about faith and outreach.
And that obviously contradicts in many ways the message they're getting from other sides, where essentially it's about me. I decide everything, obey your thirst, I'm worth it. That sort of self-centered approach. In that sense, the Catholic vision is contradicting a lot of that, or at least trying to give them a different view of life.
It is, but we've always been called to be countercultural. We've always been called to just add something into the mix that is different. And I think we do it well. I think in the way that we talk about ourselves as community as well, it goes against that very thing that you were speaking about. It's not just about me. I belong to a bigger organism that's a living organism. I belong to a community, I belong to a faith community, and belonging to that carries responsibilities as well as great gifts and blessings.
And I suppose we can see the damage that's done for loneliness in terms of addictions and depression and mental stress and self-harm and so on, which seems to be very prevalent among so many young people. Clearly, the secular message is doing terrible damage to many young people, even though it's being vaunted as being the only way forward, as being a wonderful way for liberation. Obviously, we're trying to have that Catherine Macaulay approach to helping young people cope with the pain of being human, rather than just having ditzy dreams of unrealistic futures.
And I think too, whenever you raise your head and you look out from yourself, that then you can help other people. Sometimes the people who have been most hurt in a particular thing, maybe it's addiction, maybe it's self-harm, people who have worked and come through that, very often they're the people who have a big contribution to make. And you see it in schools sometimes, in peer mentoring programs. The child who maybe in first or second year didn't get on so well or had difficulty settling in, they're a wonderful advocate in sixth year for peer mentoring and bringing others along. And I think that's one of the things that we're good at in schools, encouraging that and trying to make connections all the time. And I think that's what our young people are missing, connectedness.
And in terms of ongoing formation for teachers in promoting that ethos, obviously there's been the MA and Catholic school leadership that's been very strong here in the Derry base. I think we've about 70 people have gone through the master's programme or are currently going through it. You have some awareness of that programme.
I think that was a wonderful initiative in helping people to see, particularly people going for leadership positions. You are not going to lead just any kind of school. You are going to lead a Catholic school, and that is different. And what the MA has done, I think, and it has borne great fruit when you see some of the appointments in schools around the diocese. It has helped people to understand increasingly what the Catholic ethos is and what leadership in a Catholic context is. So I think it has been a wonderful initiative, and it has blended learning. Before we talked about blended learning, really, and I think we need to be encouraging people to go with that particular programme. But also, I think a lot of the resources at the Catechal Centre, and I know with yourself they spearheaded the MA programme. A lot of the online resources that they point people to, I think we could be giving a lot of encouragement in schools to those, where people could do maybe modules online and be accredited for those.
Okay, I suppose one thing strikes me about a master's like that, an MA in Catholic school leadership. It involves a thesis, and there's obviously going to be a huge resource of people who've done master's levels research on a particular aspect, probably of the school they're teaching in, which will be practice-based learning, but actually will give us a much greater insight into what we've been doing very often without thinking about it.
Exactly. And teachers, Bishop, we love to get together and we love to talk and we love to share ideas. So to have those theses as a resource in the diocese is great if people would make them available, and I'm sure they would. I'm sure they would.
And we've also had these, let's say, education conferences, Columba Education Conference for Catholic educators. We had one very successful 3 years ago, and please God, we're having one at the end of August in 2023 as well, to bring people together for those conversations.
Exactly. They were marvellous. They had keynote speakers and the workshops, a whole variety of workshops, but to stand in St. Columba's and look out at the number of teachers gathered together, and you just knew the wealth of conversation that was going on there. I think that was very, very important, because it also helped people. Sometimes the pace of life in a school is so hectic that you can get into a silo and you don't look out and see what else is going on. To look round those rooms and see the vast variety of workshops that were on, excellent keynote speakers, but the wealth that there was among all those teachers.
And what strikes me about our last two subjects there is that not only that those events took place, but clearly there's been a hunger for people to get an MA, to understand Catholic school leadership better, and a hunger for coming together as Catholic educationalists to saying, we want to be able to articulate what it is we're doing. We want to be able to claim our place in the public forum as, in many ways, the most successful educational sector in Northern Ireland. We want to be able to adapt our way of being Catholic schools so that we contribute with other partners to a good education system. I have a sense there's a hunger out there on the part of many teachers to be given the tools with which they can defend, promote and develop Catholic education.
I really think so. You see, in schools we want to be good at things. We want to be good in our subject areas so that we can give the best to our children. Well, we want to be good, and by that I mean we want to have the language and the understanding and the depth of knowledge about what it is to be a Catholic teacher in a Catholic school, so that we can speak confidently. I sometimes think that when we get together for conversations, not only in schools, but about adults, about our faith, we're not confident in the language we use. And I think these kind of conferences give us that language and give us that confidence and enthuse us. They give it. The coming together always gives us an enthusiasm.
And knowing that there are professors, experts at all sorts of levels who intellectually have a passion for Catholic education. It's not just some sort of a rural Northern Ireland hangover from a past divided society. It actually is intellectually a very respectable form of education in huge demand.
And we respect that in schools, of course. We respect that input. Some of the things that we would have done in school, and I know other schools have done it as well, the Catholic Ethos Day. And we had a few that were very good in particular. And what we challenged departments to do, how are you contributing to the Catholic ethos of this school? And you had people reflecting on what they were doing and then presenting that to the rest of the staff. And you see, that notion of reflection, sometimes we don't do enough of that in schools. We're so busy with the immediate. And that's why those one-day conferences out of school and those Catholic Ethos Days are important.
Sometimes reflecting just on what you're doing already without even being conscious of it. I suppose one other emphasis that we've had in this whole synodal journey in the Catholic Church as well as in the Universal Church has been the element of prayer. And I suppose it can't be easy enabling schools or enabling pupils to find time for prayer or to find time for silence. But do you think that's a significant element of ongoing formation?
I think that's the crucial element, if I'm being absolutely honest. And I think in the life of a school, the busy life of a school, at morning assembly, for example, there's your opportunity to have a scripture text read, to have somebody explain it, to have prayers of the faithful written by the children themselves out of something that they have, that they're passionate about. At different times of the school year, the liturgical seasons, putting those markers down. Lent was always a very easy one in school, because you had your Ash Wednesday to begin with, and then all the Trócaire, all the different and innovative things that went on for Trócaire. But the context of all that was the prayer. And from that, all these other outreaches come. And I think it's vital. And it's not simply the school mass at the beginning of the year, that's the prayer done. It's that ongoing and the ongoing prayer life of the school. And I think as these people who've done this MA in particular will be modelling, we hope, and school leaders in Catholic schools will be modelling, that you put down the marker. As the leader, you put down the marker for prayer. And that's part of, this is who we are and this is what we believe. And this is essential.
And I suppose we have huge resources as well, in the sense that the liturgical seasons of the Church's year touch all sorts of emotions. Advent and hunger and expectation and yearning and dreaming and hoping. Christmas, celebrating the mystery of human life in our midst. Lent, the whole question of solidarity and self-restraint. Celebrating new birth at Easter, new life at Easter, the mission. We have a richness in the Church's liturgical year, which can be a source of prayer. But they actually deal with deep human subjects, yearning and life and self-control and being reborn and so on. Rediscovering that for schools must be important too.
It is. And the RE departments and the coordinators of RE in the primary schools play a key role there. And I think in some of the people that they would bring in to schools to help lead prayer and to teach prayer, those are very important. But we would have said, but the Catholic ethos is more than what happens in the RE department, that we want everybody on board with this. And people would say, teachers would say, but I don't know how to pray, so I can't really pray with the children. We would have had that. And so then you give them a prayer. We write a prayer that's the prayer for the school, but you're saying to the children all the time, this is important. This is important. We are praying, and we are praying to God to intervene in our lives and to help us. And I think if we could get that message across, the Lord wants to walk with us all the time.
In that sense that God's on our side, working for our
That's
good.
Right.
This has been a fascinating conversation. I'm just conscious of the time moving on. But what I'm hearing you saying is that Catholic education has to learn new ways of identifying who we are, and having a positive sense of hopefulness regarding the future in terms of pupils and in terms of the role of Catholic education into the future in a very hurting, a very fractured, a very sad society, especially for our young people. But thank you for sharing your experience this morning, Bishop. Your passion for education, your leadership role, and your ongoing contribution, even post-retirement, to boards of governors and all of that. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you found that conversation helpful in some ways. Catholic education is looking to ensure that we're well positioned to face the future, to contribute to our society on this island and beyond, and to ensure that our young people get the very best experience and hope-filled, high aspirational based education to lead them into the future, to be a blessing on themselves, on the families they will found, and on the society of which they are members. Thank you very much for being with us for this conversation. Marguerite Hamilton, thank you so much. Go to Mila Maya Gulfgalik.